Welcome to Good to Know Shreveport-Bossier, a podcast showcasing the good news in Shreveport-Bossier. I'm one of your hosts, Paul Reeser. My co-host, the prestigious anchorman for KTBS Channel 3, Jeff Beimfohr. Very busy man. Not able to be here today, but don't worry. He will be back next time, so don't give up on the podcast already. I promise it won't just be me from now on. But I've got some great guests today because I wanted to talk about what is this Committee of 100. Every time we introduce the show and we end the show, we say brought to you by KTBS Channel 3 and the Committee of 100. And people say, what the heck is the Committee of 100? So today I brought some guys that know all about it and can tell us about it because it's a pretty neat organization. But my first guest, Jack Sharp, served as president and CEO of the Biomedical Research Foundation. Many of you know it as BRF, very impactful economic for North Louisiana. You were there for, oh my gosh, several years as the president and CEO. You're also founding member founding partner in Snelling Personnel Services in Shreveport, management positions with Merrill Lynch in Abilene, Houston, Texas, and New York City. Get a rope. You were a member of several state and local economics. The governor promotes you to things. You're on every board I can speak of. I think you're going to be the next host of Jeopardy. But man, thanks for coming. And also, Robert's here. So let's. No, but hey, Robert Pugh, president of the Romp Pugh Agency, very prestigious advertising, full service advertising agency in Shreveport. Been around 41 years, so that's amazing. But two guys from the Committee of 100. So I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Jack,
A pleasure.
what is the Committee of 100? Can you tell me a little bit about, just kind of what it is and why in the world you guys wanted to do a podcast?
Okay. Committee of 100 is a group of business people for the most part. About right now, just a little over 190.
That's the first question I always ask. The Committee of 100, why is there 170 committees?
Yeah,
now
that's a
there's
good question.
190. Everybody wants
I
to
don't
be
have
on.
an answer to that because I think when it was chartered back in 1961, it probably had less than 100, and they were maybe optimistic that they could grow it to 100.
Okay.
But when the charter was approved by the Secretary of State, Louisiana, they put a limit at 130 members, active members, voting members of the committee. Over time, we've grown by having some of our retired guys want to stay connected.
Right.
And so we set up a new class of membership called advisory members as opposed to active members.
Okay. The
And
guys
they-
that still want to come to lunch.
That's right. They still come to lunch. They go to committee meetings. They contribute.
Right.
Not maybe at quite the level they did as an active member, but still with their experiences and whatnot, they're valuable to the committee to have them stick around and contribute.
Well, and I forgot to say the reason that you're really you've been on the Committee of 100 for a long time, but you're the executive director of the Committee of 100. So, if a person just says, what's the Committee of 100? Kind of what's the short answer just to describe what is the Committee of 100?
Well, me.
It's Jack. Mr. 100.
Well, when it was formed, clearly it was businessmen that were looking at how they could, in the private sector, support work that was going on in the public sector to strengthen the community, make it more vital, be more growth-oriented, and succeed. I mean, it was basically that. And being business people, that all worked in their favor.
Right.
Because
Wanted to help the
obviously,
area
if the
succeed.
market is strong,
Right.
why my business can get stronger.
Right.
So there were opportunities and whatnot that they were looking to try to create. And that's still the case today. Our mission really is to look for opportunities and needs in the community and work with others to try to find ways to find the truth of what's going on and where the needs can be met, and then work together collectively to try to get rid of the problems and add in positives that help the community to be better.
Well, so
And
who
so that's
are
the
these members? Who are these businessmen? Guys like Robert.
Right.
Robert, so why did you join the Committee of 100? What is it that they look for I guess, Jack, what is it that you look for when you seek out a member of the Committee of 100? What are the prerequisites to becoming a member?
They're there. It's a good question to ask because people will say, how do I become a member? And not everybody is eligible to be a member in the committee. It is basically a group of leaders in their corporations or businesses or whatever. So they have to be either the ranking member of, let's say it's a national company, but their operations are here.
Yeah.
Well, if they're the ranking member of managing somebody or other here, and they're the boss, then they're eligible because the membership is for individuals. It's not for the companies. But they have to be in a position in the private sector where they can contribute from that experience base that they have.
Okay.
So it is reserved for that highest level of individual in any of the companies or in those people we find the leader of those companies.
Right.
And so those 130 guys and gals are all CEOs or managing partners or whatever the title is for that highest ranking member of their organization.
Yeah, the other thing I find that they have in common is that it's a unique group of people that care about the community. They want to do things that are good for the community. It is business oriented because this is where we live and where we work. But it's one of the things I feel like, and you know, the guests that we've talked to, and the people we talk to that come to our town, they find that our people are our biggest asset. And it's that attitude I find with the majority of the members at the Committee 100. They're there not just because they're, you know, want to come to get lunch and hear what's going on. They want to actually make a difference.
Right.
Right.
That's what I find is really cool about it.
Well, I'm on the committee, which actually, so obviously your selection process isn't that prestigious.
Some
People slip through the cracks.
There are cracks in there somewhere.
But that's interesting. It's the highest level person. I guess,
Right, it
because
is.
wanting to
But Robert
influence.
makes a very good point. One of the things that we do, one doesn't apply for membership in the committee. What happens is that members of the committee, existing members of the committee, may be in another organization with someone that they recognize, cares about the community. Maybe that's how they know them. They're in another community activity with them.
Right.
But at any rate, they would nominate, without the individuals knowing, they would nominate that individual with support from others. And then we would vet that individual through our membership committee. And their job is to make sure that the people that we bring into the organization are indeed what we believe they are. And one of the most important criterion is, what do they do now in the community? How are they
Right.
connected to the community? Because if they're not engaged in the community and whatnot, then we really don't feel that they match up against what our mission is and what our purpose is.
Well, it's a neat group of people, like I say, very influential. Everyone I met has been very positive and very passionate about how do we help this community to grow, and whether it be economically to bring other businesses in, or whether it be socially, or you know, just create a better life standard for the area. So
Right.
there's a lot of different committees. So how are these committees broken down, and what do they represent?
Good question, because the committees is.
I wish Jeff was here to hear this, because he doesn't think I ever ask good questions.
Yeah. The committees that exist are based on what we see to be some of the priority needs of the community on a continuing basis.
Right.
So we have 6 committees that are chaired by one of our members, and then there are members who are interested in that particular area of need or our opportunity. Join with them and form a committee to set goals for the year and assign work and basically go out and make things happen. And let me tell you, we got 6 of them that are externally connected. They're outside of the committee. They work from the committee into the community with other agencies, with public officials, or whatever it might be. And the 6 are, we have a Barksdale committee, and obviously the name tells you what their focus
Right.
is. And they are engaged in working with the Military Affairs Council, also Barksdale Forward, and other organizations that support the base, and basically are trying to understand what the needs of the base are. We're right now, for instance, they're working on looking at ways which we can support development on the base for the airmen and their families.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of that work is not monies that are appropriated from the government.
Right.
That's the military side of the
Sure.
equation. But the human side often has to be self-generated funding or whatever that happens. So we're working with the base to try to make sure that some of these amenities that make Shreveport and Bossier a very good base for them to be assigned to, right? We want them to be welcomed. We want them to be assimilated into the community. And it's not just the Committee of 100. I mean, think of all the organizations that care greatly and mightily about
Sure.
Barksdale, and with good reason. So,
And hundreds
so
of
that's
these
one.
hundreds of these airmen retire every year.
And are here.
And the hope is to get them to stay in Bossier. You know, if that's something we want to provide a great place for them to retire too, because they retire when they're like 40, a lot of them.
Sure.
And you know, keep them around. So helping to just create a better community for them to maybe stay here.
Well, and that's absolutely true. And in fact, in the Committee of 100, under a non-active membership, we have 6 generals and colonels who are either retired from the base or are currently in one of the 4 lead positions of the components of the base. So
Okay.
that they're there as military liaison or honorary members of the committee, and that contact with the base is very important to us. So that's one committee. There's another one called the Communications Committee. You guys might have heard of it.
They'll let anyone on that one.
Actually, there wasn't even a communications committee 5 years ago. This is a lot of these things that the Committee 100 has been doing for decades has really been doing it, you know, under the radar. No one's really known about it, and we really wanted to. The Communications Committee was mainly formed to let our members know what all these other committees were doing. And there was a little resistance on letting the public know about it for some reason.
Right.
But I felt, a lot of people felt like there was the mystery behind the Committee 100 was actually working against us. You know, we need to show the value, let people know the value. A lot of people doing this, they don't want the notoriety, they don't want the credit, but they wanted to help the community. But we felt like, as in the last couple administrations, I'll call them executive committees, said we really need to get the word out there. And
Right.
so that was kind of what the original goal of the Communications Committee was.
Right. And the podcast, The Good to Know, is basically spearheaded by that committee. So what y'all that are watching this podcast, you're really seeing the fruits of that committee's work.
You're welcome. So
And George Servin at KTBS has been so generous.
absolutely.
With the technology support and whatnot, but George is a member of the committee, and so the connections are there, and it was an obvious way to try
It
to
would
make
be an
this
interesting
happen.
thing to talk about, to think about. I won't go too deep into it. It's only like our 3rd episode, but you know, like I say, a lot of the people on the Committee of 100, I think they're very civic minded. They want to do good things, and they don't necessarily want any credit for it for a variety of reasons.
Right.
One, I know we like to do good deeds, but you don't want everybody knowing, because sometimes no good deed is unpunished,
Right.
you know? And then sometimes it's like, oh, they do that, and you get a lot of people coming to you, you know? So it's easier just to do things sometimes and not hear
But
about it.
it's interesting, and as Jack said, one of the things that we're always doing, every committee is looking for ways to better this community. And what is one of the needs? Well, one of the needs is to get a more positive attitude.
Right.
The woeism out there that we all we see is the warts. You know, we look. You know, it takes outsiders to come in and point out all the great things we have sometimes.
Right.
And so that's kind of where the germ of Good to Know, the name Good to Know for this podcast. The idea for a podcast itself, I'm gonna have to give credit where it came from Paul. And I begrudgingly said, yeah, I think maybe we could do that. You know? But it's turned out, it's amazing, all the guests that we've called are just, there's not one of them that said they do not want to be a part of this.
Right.
Telling the good news about Shreveport and Bossier is a top of mind concern of all these civic minded people.
Right.
And so that really it's not going to be a problem getting people to come on here and talk about all the
Right.
good things.
And it's not a commercial for the Committee of 100. I wanted to talk today just about what is the Committee of 100, because it's on the sign. You know, what is
Right.
the committee? And it is a civic organization that wants to encourage the community. So we thought, you know, there's a lot of places you can find out the bad news.
Yes.
And it's there. It's true. It's
Right.
true. But there's also a lot of good news. So we want to talk about those great things that are happening. So I went to George. I said, George. No, I went to Robert. I said, Robert, I got an idea. I was the first time my first meeting on this committee. And they're like, man, I don't know if that's a great idea. But luckily, Robert and George took it and ran with it. And they told me it was going to be a lot of work. And they were right, actually. It's been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun and exciting.
And I think it's all that you said, guys, is right on mark. We're expecting that the reception will be good because it's bringing good news out into the public that they wouldn't have any other way of perhaps gaining. And so that's what we're going to do.
Well, thank you,
That's
Jack,
that
also
committee.
for getting behind it and wanting to.
Well, not a problem. But another committee we have is community relations. It's basically one that looks at the. We're in some ways a divided community. Race is always an issue on many things for a lot of reasons, and it isn't necessarily an ism. It's just a reality of the fact that there are differences in the community that have to be addressed.
Yep.
And so this committee, in trying to build stronger community relations, is working with leadership all over the place in town to try to find ways that we can connect better, that we can be more empathetic and understanding of the differences, and therefore accommodate them in ways that bring them closer together and unify the community in ways that address crime, address this, address that, and hopefully make improvement all along the way. And they're a very passionate group, one of the most passionate committees we have, because they're out there on the street, boots on the ground type of thing, and it's very productive for them, and I hope it's productive for the community as well.
Absolutely.
Then we have another committee that is very important right now, particularly the Economic Development Committee is a large committee because we are made up of primarily business people. There's an affinity for things like economic development, so there's a lot of our members that want to be working in that direction. But it is right now very much engaged in looking at some of the infrastructural needs that I think most people in the community know about but don't understand necessarily. Things like the 3132 extension down to the port for better truck transportation and things of that sort. Things like the Intercity Connect.
Right.
Those are infrastructural needs that are huge, and they're they're federal projects, they're state projects, they're local projects, all of that. But they need really to be supported in the community, because without that, it's very hard to achieve the other support necessary, whether that's financial resources or whether that's just public opinion or whatever, that the politicos and whatnot, if they allocate funds around, are looking, is this something that's wanted? And why do we know that it's wanted? Well, because there are expressions coming from all sides to get that done. So what that committee does is it works with a lot of other groups. NLCOG, or the North Louisiana Council of Governments, handles a lot of the federal monies and the like, and so we work very closely with that to understand what their needs are, where they are, and what we can do to assist in making things move forward and through the process of getting these projects of this type through. Right.
And when we talk about the type of members that you have on your committee, have the connections and the influence to go out and get involved in that sort of thing, move it forward. But also the exciting thing about this podcast is we can keep our listeners informed when big economic development's happening, and give people the heads up, this is what's coming, and then how can you get involved in everything.
Well, again, these committees are really active in the community right now, and they do work with a lot of different groups. I mean, something of the magnitude of an I-49 project, right? It's political, it's financial in 2 or 3 different levels. We have to be in contact, and we do that in concert with another committee, which I'll mention in a minute. But you've got to meet with your legislators, you've got to meet with your congressmen and whatnot, and make sure they're on board so that we get the right message through to the decision makers who are allocating out the resources that are needed for these kind of projects. So it's complex, it's mighty, but it's good. Another one that's one of my favorites, because I've been connected with it for a long time, is education. And education is so important in today's world everywhere, but particularly I think in the South, where we've been so blessed with natural resources and whatnot as sources of our economy. that we've not really been as aggressive in getting our minds wrapped around new innovation, entrepreneurialism, technologies, and things of that sort. And to do that, you've got to be well educated. You can't just jump in and say, I think I'm going to invent a widget or something. So my point is that we work with right now, early childhood development is very important. And you're seeing a lot of that. And I'm glad that people are waking up to the fact that these kids develop so early that from birth to 5, you better be on top of them, because you're really helping that brain to develop and the neural connections made. So that's important, and it's happening here. And we need to show people where it's happening and get them excited about it and understand what their role in it is, because everybody in the community is responsible in one way or another for these kids.
Well, our area, agricultural and natural resources, gas and so forth, we're relying on that.
All important.
But we really need to develop the technical aspect of this area, and we are, with Cyber Command and several things that are happening.
Right.
That we've had several guests on the show that will be, but also, like I say, the education is essential to build that infrastructure to attract that type of
and
industry.
frankly, if the perception of education in our area is not good, then the job that NLEP and the BRF and all these groups that are trying to draw people into our market as workforce and innovators and whatnot is that much harder, because people are going to look and say, do we really want to bring our families down where we're questioning whether or not the school system is what it needs to be, and that can happen. So that's the role of that one. There's 2 others that I'll mention real quickly. No, there's not. There's one more that I mentioned, because I think I've talked about 5 already. The Government Committee, Government Relations Committee. Almost everything that we've talked about,
even though we're a non-political
committee, we are a 50.
We try to be.
We're a 501c4.
C4, excuse me.
And C4s cannot get engaged in campaigning for individuals who are running for public office.
Right.
We can get very much engaged in the issues that are important to those who are electing whomever it is that they prefer.
Right.
So that's our nature. But we have to have good connections with those who represent us, because many of these things we've talked about already in terms of areas of need and opportunity are going to require that we get resources from other sources.
Right.
In some cases we can grow our own, but in other cases we have to get the state to ante in, come to our trough and drink a little bit. And certainly on big projects like we were talking about, the infrastructure projects, it's federal funds that are more important. If we look at CIC in Barksdale, it's federal funds that are important. If you look at a lot of the things we've been talking about, it's got connections, political connections to decisions. And for that purpose, we need to make strong connections and have strong relationships with those who represent the community. And so that's the role of that committee.
And there's one more committee. I don't think we talked about the healthcare. And healthcare.
Oh, that's right. I did.
That is really one of the biggest benefits and amenities that our community is offering. So I know that.
And how could I, in my 50 years of work in healthcare, not remember?
We talked about it before we went on.
I said I had 2, and then
no, believe me.
But no, healthcare.
That's what I'm here for.
That's why we brought Robert.
We've got 3 strong hospital systems here.
Absolutely.
We have a medical school. Community is killed to have something like that, because that's cutting edge stuff, and it draws the best and brightest and whatever to your community. We've had some tremendous successes with respect to medical research here. We have, and I just was the beneficiary of a very technical heart surgery, and it's a medical miracle that I didn't have to go somewhere else to find. It could be done right here in Shreveport by people who have the knowledge, the experience, and the technical savvy to take on stuff like that and deliver it. So there,
you trotted
in
right
the area
up the stairs to the studio. You left me behind. I'm like, I thought you had that. Never mind.
Healthcare is, we're a regional health center. We serve a lot of area around us, and a lot of people are brought in here. I think of Shriners on what they do. We've got kids coming up from Central America to receive care that is available to them at Shriners. It's a wonderful addition to our healthcare. It's been around for 100 years.
Absolutely.
So
Bless you.
it started here in Shreveport.
That's right.
One of our, you want to go back a ways to start and see a success story? Well, that's one of them we can look at. But the point is, healthcare is a big component of need. Serves a lot of people. We have both the ability to bring in the best and brightest, and people coming in with the ability to afford that kind of surgery or treatment or diagnostic or whatever it might be. On the other hand, we have people who can't and can receive it anyhow because it's here, and those services are provided to them.
Well, certainly
in part because it's here.
It's a huge economic impact and a huge quality of life impact that we have that right here in this area.
Absolutely.
So, good committee to be on. Good job, Robert.
No, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I'm a rookie at this podcast. Thank you. Thank you for being gentle.
Keep me on the straight and narrow here.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've covered the committee. That's awesome. It is, like you say, it's technical. There's a lot of aspects to it. It's hard to describe in a short period. That's why I wanted to bring you on, the expert, and really talk about it. We're not going to advertise the Committee of 100 because it's a public service provided by KTBS and the Committee of 100. But people keep saying, "What the heck's the committee?" And it's a very active, very involved group of people, business people who are very concerned and advocates of this area. You are one of the biggest advocates for Shreveport-Bossier of any person I've ever met.
Well, thank you for that, but I don't know.
Why are you so inspired to help this community?
I moved my family here in 1976, and it was in the pharmaceutical area, and it became Boots Pharmaceuticals, and I had the blessing of being able to move up the ladder, so to speak, as we built that company from not much to quite a bit.
Yeah.
And anyhow, there were several opportunities to leave, and my wife and I decided that our kids were actually very happy here. And they were doing quite well from a schooling standpoint and from a connection with activities and friends and whatnot. And we said, hey, this is a pretty good town to live in. I mean, we lived in Abilene, Texas, and down in Houston, and up in New York City area, and before, as part of my career. And we'd been here for, well, I don't know, 13 years or so when the first opportunities started popping up. And at one point, when Boots decided that they were going to liquidate some of the operations here and move up to Lincolnshire outside of Chicago, I was supposed to go up there, and I declined. And we did that intentionally. We said that our lifestyle here, we both grew up in the Chicago, Milwaukee area, my wife and I. So we knew we were happier here than we were before. And so we said, we're going to stay here. And I said, well, if we do, then I'm going to do what I can to give back to the community that we are so happy in living in.
Right.
And I had some people that knew me who were more than happy to grab me by the collar and drag me into various things.
Yes.
And
Well, thank goodness they did.
It's good. It's good. It's a good way to live.
It's a good place to live from Milwaukee to Shreveport and Bossier, and you're staying right here. Well, man, you have had an amazing career, and you very justifiably could just relax and do some fishing and long walks, but you decided, even after this great health miracle, that locally, to get your heart tuned back up, you've stayed, and you're still staying so active with your role with the Committee 100.
Absolutely.
And you're not just, you're still engaged and helping out and giving back, and I appreciate it.
One of many.
Yeah, there's a
One
few.
of many who are doing the same
170,
thing.
100.
That's right.
Jack, thank you, man,
Well,
again,
thank you,
for
Paul.
coming and visiting with
My
us today.
pleasure.
Robert, thanks for
Robert.
co-hosting. As a matter of fact, you might be here with Jeff next week.
I don't think so.
Well, for Paul Reeser and sometimes Jeff Beimfohr, I appreciate you listening to our podcast. You can listen anywhere podcasts are found. You can also watch us on the Good to Know Facebook page and at KTBS Channel 3's website. And we're here every other Wednesday. Come back and see us. Tell your friends. I appreciate you listening to Good to Know.